simple intellectual models for better air quality. The idea behind this tool is to do some integrated assessment where we have information on emissions to dispersion to health impacts, and we are trying to optimize a combination of different options that are available for the policymakers. So in this module we'll give you a glimpse of how the optimizer works in the tool. The tool itself can be downloaded at urbanemissions.info, and just click on Semare and you will find all the tools and the manuals and the downloading instructions and how to operate it. And of course these videos are there to explain some more. So if we go back to the tool, this is the summary sheet, and this is where we have a summation of all the information from the emission sheet to the dispersion calculations and the health impacts. So we have two buttons here. One is an optimization reset, it just resets everything to 0, and the solver button. So here the button is created for quick access, but you can also go to the data sheet and click on solver, and it will give you how the constraints can be put together. Here what we're trying to do is trying to optimize it for least cost by changing percentages on these different types of interventions, and you can have some minimum and maximum constraints on each of these, how much you want to do or don't want to do, and it will automatically change the emissions and concentrations for each of the sectors. So first we have to set up constraints. Let's say we want to reduce PM10 and PM2.5 by 10% each, and you solve it. Says if we do these sets of interventions, it will cost us this much, and we will be able to reach these targets. So here you will notice that even other pollutants are also getting reduced, but here this is what we call as co-benefits. Even though we are targeting these two pollutants, others are also being reduced at the same time, so that's your co-benefit. Okay, so now here this is where you can change more and more options. You can reset and say that okay, besides PM10 and PM2.5 I want to also reduce CO2. Then we resolve it. Since we added another constraint, obviously you have to do little more than what we had as a solution before. It's going to cost us this much, and this will be the solution. So we can also do it by pollutant. Say now we want to target only SO2 and not everything else. So we have only constraint for SO2. So here, since SO2, we have to target a lot more if we have to reach 10% of that. So you will notice that reaching this 10%, we are also getting more benefits in the other pollutants as well. If the target was to reduce all the pollutants by 10%, so we will have a new solution requiring us to do all these by at least this much percentage, so that we have these benefits. You will notice that for CO2 here it goes up to 19%. So in order to reach these to 10% each, obviously one of the sectors is actually getting reduced a lot more, and you are having a lot more co-benefits. So instead of 10%, so you have 19% more. You can also change this to say that I want to do a lot more than just 10% each. So if we introduce PM2.5 to 30%, so you'll have a new solution. So far you've seen the constraints only looking at the emissions perspective, but we can also change this. I mean, we can say that some of the interventions you wanted at least a certain percentage. For example, say you want to convert buses from diesel to CNG, minimum 30% is going to happen anyway and not 0%, and you can solve it. Then it will give you a different solution where at least 30% of the buses are converted from diesel to CNG, and then you have the remaining set of interventions coming into play. And we can add more constraints to this optimization. You go back to the solver and we can say that add a new constraint saying I want the health impacts to be less than are equal to 1000. Okay, and you solve it, so then it will give you since we added a new constraint, and with this 30% minimum conversion, you still have to do more in order to reach this 1000 target. You can reset. We can add more constraints to the same, saying that we want to converge this cell to less than 40 micrograms per meter cube. So in order to reach this cell to 40, we have to do a lot more, and these are the different types of reductions that one have to achieve in order to drop this cell to 40 micrograms per meter cube, and so on. So one big constraint in this analysis is the cost curves. These are cost curves that are built into the demo tool based on the information available from past studies, but these are all very subjective, so one needs to go through them very carefully and adjust them. And this is only a few of the options. One can add a lot more options here. Excel can take up to 100 constraints, so we can have many more options and many more constraints to do it. The bigger the grid size, the longer the optimization process. So here the calculations are being done for a 5x5 grid domain. If the same domain was at say 10x10 or 20x20 or 40x40, the calculations will take longer. So advise that one could translate something like this into a MATLAB code or any other program where these calculations can be done a lot more faster. But as long as the domain is small and you have a limited number of constraints, Excel can process all these calculations. If you have more questions, and you can refer to the manual on how this is being conducted, and you can download the manual here.